Ruth Richardson gets into a really interesting conversation where she starts to absolutely sing the virtues and all the successes of the mother of all budgets. And Jack Tame goes, yeah, but what about the poverty?
Oh.
And then there was a pause. And then the conversation continues for a few minutes.
Back in their box, as they should be.
What about poverty?
Well, the real poverty was New Zealand's if we had done nothing. If we had done nothing, then New Zealand would have most certainly faced the crisis that the Labour government did in the mid-'80s. And in a crisis, the people who are hurt most are the poorest people, the people on the bottom
So you
of the
decided
road.
to get in there first.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what Jack's about
I
to
can't
do,
let
yeah.
them get hurt. I'm going to hurt them.
Well done, comrade. We agree. It's the vulnerable who you're going to hurt the most. Agreed.
Oh, the poverty was of politics. The poverty was lack of political courage to deal with these issues.
So there's the bumper stickers and shit that I was talking about before. The poverty was of politics. What are you talking about, you fucking moron? You puppets-headed woman. What are you on? Is this dementia? Jesus.
So unemployment benefits were cut by 24%. I think the cuts to low-income households were greater in dollar terms than the savings from the top 20% of households. And have a look at this. This is a graphic we put together with the after-housing costs measure. That's a poverty measure. That measures
Pause that, Pat.
Yeah, just, I mean,
There
Jack
we
will
go.
explain it to us, but yeah. Can you notice a bit of an upswing there in the I paused it, hang on a second.
the housing
A bit of an
costs.
upswing there, just about there, around 1991, and children going into poverty. I wonder because the real poverty was the poverty of politics, Chewie. Don't look at this. The real poverty was the poverty of politics.
Oh, the real poverty was the friends we made along the way. This is what I talk about this is what I'm thinking about when I talk about the psychic damage, the scars that this woman left on this country. We have never been able to get this back in the box. She unleashed it. I remember, I would have been 11, 12, somewhere around there when this budget came out. And I remember how it felt when people lost their benefits, when people were losing their jobs, it was exactly the same thing. She's right. The late 80s, the stock market crash, the fact that New Zealand was almost bankrupt after losing all of our farming markets and that sort of thing, which led to this dramatic decision to do neoliberalism. There were massive job cuts. Stop me if this sounds familiar. Massive job cuts. Many people going on to benefits because they had to, because the economy was fucked. And then Ruth Richardson sweeps in with an idea that the only reason the economy is not firing is because all of these blood-sucking leeches, these welfare queens and all of these people, these takers, they're just always taking, and you should watch your neighbours, and here's a hotline that you can call. They're the problem. She captured all of those people.
But she actually says
We've never got poverty rates back to where they were before she did this.
That point is made by Jack Tame, and also she does actually go down the young people bludgeoning sitting on the couch line as well. Literally, it's bumper stickers from the 1990s.
Measure, that's a poverty measure that measures the number of kids living in low-income households. So this is from Stats New Zealand, and the different lines show the different levels of poverty.
Bloody woke Stats New Zealand, show them their woke numbers.
The top line is what they used to call inclusive poverty. The pink line down the bottom there, that's the poorest. That's what they called severe poverty. And you can see, though, there's a common trend in all these measures, right?
Yes.
There's a huge spike in 1991 and a spike that never corrects.
That was you.
Why is that?
You did that.
Did we all hear that? What he said, though? A spike that never corrects. So that's Jack to her. It's a spike that never corrects, which is exactly what you're saying, Chewie.
There's a common trend in all these measures, right? There's a huge spike in 1991 and a spike that never corrects. Why is that?
Look, the spike that New Zealand had to deal with was debt and deficits. And there was no...
And if that's how you dealt with it, what you're saying is we dealt with it off the backs of the poorest and most vulnerable. Again, Chewie, sound familiar? I just want to go back for a sec because
Sounds super familiar.
You know what's interesting? Even though it never corrects, there was a pretty big downward spike here in about 2006, 2007. Can you just remind me who was in government then with that big downward spike? The one time it did start trending down, was it still Ruth Richardson in power around then?
Oh, that was not, thankfully.
I think it was Auntie Helen. So. It's never corrected other than starting to correct under a Labor government. And then guess what National did? They took it back up. And since then, again, never corrected.
That never corrects. Why is that?
Look, the spike that New Zealand had to deal with was debt and deficits. And there was no shrinking that responsibility, because if I was part of a government that looked the other way, we would have condemned the country to generalised poverty. If you look at the unemployment benefit, this government...
So we had to sacrifice a few. Just think about the conversation we just heard from Jacinda, right? This person is saying, yep, we had to throw some under the bus for the good of us all. Jacinda's just spent that podcast saying, we refuse to throw the most vulnerable under the bus. We couldn't do that. We tried to help everyone. This haunted puppet, is the one who's saying, yep, some had to be burdened, but it was best for the rest of us, especially of those living up the top, going to Canada for ski holidays for our wedding anniversaries.